Hey, Lee, if you were a ghost, what do you think your favorite beer would be?
Oh, man, you know what? I think it'd be White Claw because it's got that effervescence, and there's just a hint of flavor there, just like there might have been something that you just drank, but really there wasn't much.
Right. So it's like pretty much a vapor, and it might be there and it might not.
Pretty much, yeah. Pretty much. You just wake up drunk.
All you see is the after effects. Well, today, Lee, we are talking booze and brews and ghost tours. Mike, roll the tape.
You are listening to the Beyond Terrestrial Podcast, your one-stop shop for the outstanding, the unconventional, and the downright strange. Strap in because the boys are about to take a wild ride. I'm Funk Master B, setting up that tea for the duo of Gumfoolery. Your hosts, Dan and Lee.
Of course I believe in aliens. I mean, in an infinitely growing universe, why would we be the only living species? Bigfoot, Nessie, all that stuff, it's gotta be real. How are we to say that we're the only ones? It's just ignorant. I think aliens are not only from other planets, but they're time travelers.
Welcome back to the Beyond Terrestrial Podcast. My name is Lee Arrett. I am one of the hosting duo that is Beyond Terrestrial. I'm coming to you from the Haunted Barn Studios inside the Bell Witch's backyard. And my buddy Dan over there is just about to tell you where he's coming from. But just so you know, we are about to do a booze-tastic show.
Yes, very cool. Just add beer. Always makes it better. Drink more beer. That's a shout out to one of our fourth-hand friends. Anyways, guys, yeah, I am Dan Martin. I am recording just down from the crossroads where Robert Johnson made his infamous deal with the devil. And today we are talking ghost tours in the Buckeye State, Lee. Have you ever been to Ohio?
I have never been to Ohio. Me and my girlfriend.
I've driven through.
You've driven through? My girlfriend and I were having a discussion about places that we've been. If it is on the west side of the U.S., like on the west side of the Rockies, I've been there. If it is on the east side of the Rockies, but before the Mississippi River, there's like a 40-60 chance that I've been there. But if it is anything west of the Mississippi and it's not Kentucky or Tennessee, I haven't been there.
Wow, you're really missing out on some.
I'm sorry,
great
Illinois.
sites.
I've been to Illinois.
Oh, there you go. Oh, there you go. There's one more. Boom. Anyways, yeah, we talked with a dude named William Haynes. Great guy, stay-at-home dad, just like me. And he is an entrepreneur, hustler, and he was a tour guide in Columbus, Ohio, before the Rona shut everything down. And he told us some great local legends about the capital of Ohio. It was a really fun interview.
It was definitely a fun interview. He told us a lot about it. He told us a lot about the hauntings in the area. And, he was just a fun guy to talk to.
Yeah, and he had details that were not in any of the Google searches that we found. So that was really cool. The real local history. A lot better than some of the stuff we found online, so that was good.
Dan, I think my favorite part, and I don't think this is giving away too much, at one point he says, I don't think that list of hauntings that you got is correct.
Yeah.
He's like, I wouldn't have ranked any of those where they've got them.
I know, so it was really cool to get in there and get the real details. But it's a long interview, so I think we should get to it. Special thanks, though, to Simple Equations Media for editing the show together. This one had some technical aspects that we did not foresee.
Yes, and just bear with us, guys. There may be some minor audio issues here and there. Mike really worked hard to clean up what he could, but there was a couple minor glitches right in the beginning there, or throughout there.
Honestly, me as a layman, I only heard a couple of them, and some of them were like when my wife came in to talk to me. I was like, I noticed that one. So he did really good. Honestly, that was the only thing that I was like, that's a problem. But he cleaned up the rest beautifully. And guys, Simple Equations Media, Las Vegas, Nevada, they are a full-service audio-video production company. They can take your ideas from pre-production for a music video, a training video, a documentary, a TV series, any sort of thing that you're working on, any creative project, and they can work it through shooting all the way to the post-production. They make us sound good. They can make you sound good. Lee, where can you find Simple Equations? Oh,
you can find Simple Equations on Facebook at Simple Equations. You can find it on Twitter at Simple Equation _. You can even find them on Instagram at I don't know.
Yes. Or you could just Google them or give them a phone call.
Yes.
And tell them what your idea is and have a consultation with them at their offices in sunny Las Vegas. Beautiful. Maybe do some gambling while you're down there. So yeah, guys, if you've got anything, audio, video, music, trying to take your band to the next level, trying to do a big project for your company, they have got the hookup there. They wrote the new theme music for our show, and it's awesome.
Interesting side note about Simple Equations Media. They specialize in recreating the theme of like Reefer Madness. So they're really good at those old, like, I'm just making stuff up, Dan. They make us sound good. I'm not going to make promises that they can't hold
Don't do a BS ad read. Don't just throw stuff in there. You psycho man. That's
okay.
Well, anyways, guys, they're really good. This interview is really good. Check it out. Check out William Haynes and his website. It's showmecolumbus.com, so check it out.
All right, guys, we're going to head to break. When we come back, we are going to be discussing the adventures of William Haynes.
So, but we can't say the things that we normally say on our podcast.
That is correct.
So I couldn't say something like beep.
And
like
I definitely couldn't say beep, 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 and beep.
I am not doing this bit.
Too late.
He's too deep in. Anyway, this is Alex Austin from Ronan Geek Official Podcast. And in the room with me today, I have...
Plebeian Pirate Adam.
And
just Rob.
And just Rob. And we are here to advertise Ronan Geek Official Podcast. We are a geek news and comedy podcast direct out of Windsor, Ontario, Canada. So if you want some Canadian flavor on your geek comedy news, make sure to give us a listen each week for gaming, movies, and TV. We'll give you some reviews. We'll give you some spoilers. And we'll give you probably a lot of other stuff you didn't ask for. So there you go. So join us wherever you find your podcast. And we look forward to having you listen to us.
Yay.
All right, Beyonders, we are back. We are here with William Haynes, a certified tour ambassador in Columbus, Ohio. William is a graduate of The Ohio State University with a degree in English and theater. He is part of numerous organizations as well as theater productions around town and is the founder of Show Me Columbus, which offers haunted history, booze and brews, OSU campus tours, and even customizable options. William, welcome to Beyond Terrestrial.
Hey, thanks for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Are there any other tidbits you'd like to tell us about yourself?
I think, one of the most interesting things, at least to me, that I like to talk about is I am a serial side hustler. And so even this tour company started as a side job along with my full-time job. And I've done everything from loan closings as a notary to knife sharpening to dog walking, and I could go on and on and on of all the things I've done to try to put a little extra money in my pockets. So
that's really cool. That's a cool way to get to know a town too. You get into different businesses, meet lots of people. So that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
Now, I remember it said in your bio, one of the organizations you were part of was like an entrepreneurs group. That's pretty cool. But can you tell us maybe a little bit just about how the coronavirus has affected that sort of thing, entrepreneurship around town?
It is interesting to see, some businesses and industries have been hit pretty hard. I mean, the tour business this year, my most popular tour by far is the Haunted History Tour, and I am not running a single one. All the places that I go are at limited capacity, so they're hesitant to let me bring a group in. I think even I had a talk with my wife about it, who's a physician, so she certainly has more of a safety mind, and saying, I'd feel bad if someone got sick on a tour where I'm taking usually 20 people and cramming them into small spots in entryways or patios or back rooms or basements or wherever I would take people. And so we decided to, this year, to be safe, we're just going to hold off and, share stories online, or I've had a few people ask for like virtual tours or storytelling type events. And so other industries like that, I notice, some of my friends who are photographers have been hit pretty hard with like weddings. I have a buddy who's a DJ who basically didn't work or is just now starting to do some things. But I've also seen some of my friends who are really creative figure out how to pivot and turn this into opportunity. Joey Hendrickson's a great example. He's a musician in Columbus he has started a number of things, basically like pop-up music venues that happen in parking lots or things like that, as well as drive-in theaters that happen along the river where people in their kayaks and canoes and come up and socially distance and still, enjoy being outside and watching movies. So you're seeing a realm of people who are saying, hey, this is hurting me, and other people are saying, hey, we're going to create opportunities to still continue to entertain and provide services for folks.
Dude, that's awesome. See, Lee and I, we really like small stories. We like local stories. We had high hopes this year of going to like festivals and all kinds of things like that. But it's not going to happen. So to see how things have changed and how guys are still trying to, keep it alive, I think is really neat. And I hope that some folks who will listen to this will be excited about the idea. Maybe when things get back to normal, we'll actually want to go take the real tour.
Absolutely. And my heart goes out to all the people who have emailed me. My website has a banner that pops up and says, hey, we're not running. And I still get, well, you do customized tours. Can we just customize? Can we do this? Can we do that? And it makes me feel good because people are looking forward to the tour. Maybe folks who didn't do it in the past, it was sold out, but at the same time, I feel bad that there's not one to offer, but hopefully, and those folks just, they're going to get an email that says, hey, you're going to hear a little bit about the tour on this podcast. So hopefully I'll get some new listeners, people who love
that's
the kind
awesome.
of stuff that you do.
So Lee, we love these small stories. We love these local places. We had a weird spike in listenership in Ohio when we switched our podcast hosts, so hopefully some Buckeyes out there will enjoy what we're doing. Lee, what do you know about Columbus, Ohio? Let's start
Ohio?
on that.
Ohio.
The great state of Ohio.
I know 3 things that you just told me. The capital of Ohio.
Yep.
Ohio State University's there.
Yep.
And it's the setting for Ready Player One.
Yeah.
That is what I know about Ohio. And I apologize, but much like Idaho, I feel like Ohio is like the most populous, the most populous state that nobody knows about.
Yeah.
Right.
Columbus is one of those cities I believe the last time I saw the rankings, we moved up to the 14th largest metro city in the country. Now, I say that I always have to give the qualifier. It's just the city itself, not counting the suburbs. I always point we're bigger than Miami, but Miami is Dade County. So it is Fort Lauderdale. It is all the area around it. So Columbus, home to 890,000 people with suburbs, 2.5 million. So it's not huge in that regards, but it's in the middle of the state and has nothing but room to grow. So it is Columbus is a large city. Ohio's it's a mixture. It's got your big cities like you have everywhere else and lots of farmland and all those kinds of things. So it's the gem that I think when people come to Columbus, they say, I never knew. I didn't know this place was so cool or had so much culture to it. But you're right. It's one of those places that, we kind of get lumped in with the Midwest. We're not, we have cornfields, but we're not the cornfields that you see in Kansas and Nebraska and places like that.
Right. Well, and it's one of those towns too, it's a big football town. And Lee, you were a bit incorrect. You said Ohio State University. What you meant was the Ohio State University.
Sorry, the Ohio State University.
Right. But no, you take a town like Lincoln, Nebraska, right? No one really wants to go, but when there's a football game, it's hopping. The thing is, a lot of those businesses and bars and places that are there when people are there for a football game, they're still there when people leave. They're there Sunday through Friday, too, not just Saturday.
What? No way.
Yeah, for real, dude.
I thought they materialized.
So
much like Spirit Halloween. They just pop up, they appear.
They do. So, William, you've heard these 3 facts that we know about Columbus. Is there any other interesting tidbit that we should know? I'm really big on trivia. I was on Jeopardy. I won 1 game. What don't I know about Columbus that I should know?
Columbus is home to Jenny's Ice Cream, which was rated the #1 ice cream in America. And you would have recently saw Joe Biden posted on Instagram when he was in Cleveland getting ready for the debate, headphones and a Jenny's Ice Cream cup that's made just right outside of Columbus. And it is remarkable, fantastic ice cream, artisan, lots of great flavors. So that's worth the trip by itself.
Oh my. That's actually really cool.
I like ice cream.
Lee, last time I was in Moscow, Lee and I worked together in a town called Moscow, Idaho, that has a new artisanal ice cream shop too. And they had some lavender flavor and all kinds of crazy stuff. But this Jenny's, we're actually closer to that now than we are to our old stomping grounds in the Gem State. But one thing about Moscow, like Columbus, Moscow is a college town. And the campus, it has its own set of ghost stories, separate from the rest of the town. Lee, do you remember any campus ghost stories?
Wasn't there something about one of the towers having somebody that either jumped off of it or am I crazy? The tower where there's the dorms, the Theophilus Tower. Yeah, I think there was something like that. The one I always remember was Reidenbaugh Hall. It's a space where a lot of the music majors can practice. Okay.
And check this out. It was investigated by Ed and Lorraine Warren.
Oh.
Yeah, so it's definitely haunted for
Bullshit.
real. But
where am I going with this? Ed and Lorraine Warren, what?
No. The thing is, there are stories students have lots of stories about being there late at night, practicing their instruments, and things going bump, rooms getting cold, all kinds of weird stuff, apparitions. So the stories are there. Ed and Lorraine, they just glom onto these sorts of things.
I know. I'm just giving you a hard time.
So William, Ohio State, a much, much larger facility than the old University of Idaho, even though the U of I, it really is the Harvard of the West. But I'm sure there are plenty of tales on campus for your ghost tours and that sort of thing.
Yeah, and it's something I've explored, offering an actual ghost tour at Ohio State. What I found is when I include beer or have beer stops, I have more people come. And currently they're not serving beer on campus, although not for the tour purposes. But there are some stories that we do occasionally touch on with some of the popular spots on campus. I think the one that I like the most, well, there's a couple. I mean, put it this way, there's a rumor of, Jeffrey Dahmer went to Ohio State or spent some time at Ohio State. And if you take a tour with one of the campus people, they'll always, he was in this room, but then the next campus guy will say, he stayed in this room. I don't know if anyone actually knows, but it's kind of a fun tidbit of people think Jeffrey Dahmer lived here. I can't confirm that, but there is a spot on campus called Mirror Lake, and it is famous, or at least it was, for the big plunge that students would do right before the Ohio State-Michigan game. That game typically takes place in November. I think, this year it was going to happen sooner, and then right now it's not happening at all. But before that game, everyone would go jump in the lake. And so Ohio, November, very cold, and it's not very deep. So there were lots of injuries and frostbitten body parts and things like that. So eventually they put up fences and they try to stop students from doing that. But anyway, it's a very popular spot. It's, I've taken a number of people, women on first dates there because it's romantic and a nice setting. And, each one you say, hey, you're the first person I brought here. I just, but so if you're in Columbus,
you've outed your technique, your first date technique.
Classic.
I'm married now, so it's, but Mirror Lake, this very popular spot there right off of the oval. So if most campuses have a quad, Ohio State has an oval, a big O, just because. So in the early 1900s, Dr. Clark, who was one of the professors on campus, the story is that he had some investments in mining that went wrong, and so he committed suicide, and his body was found over by the Pomerine Hall, which is right next to Mirror Lake. Today it's where the Mirror Lake Cafe is. You can get an ice cream cone there, but it's nowhere near as good as Jenny's. And
yeah, save your cash for the good one.
Exactly. So the rumors is that his wife stayed by his side, found his body and they had to pull her off and she wouldn't leave. And she died around 1920 or so. And people claim to see her from time to time in a pink dress kind of hovering around Mirror Lake late at night. And then people also say in Pomerine Hall that late at night, as ghost stories go, late at night when very few people are around, doors slam, open and close. And it's supposedly the angry Dr. Clark who is still upset that his investments went south. So that's sort of
Ooh, I like it.
I like anyone that has and we have several in Columbus, but I like any the woman in pink or the pink dress ghost. I love with good names, things like that. So, and it's kind of romantic. The eternal love.
The Lady of the Lake.
Exactly.
Very cool. Very cool. Now, Lee, I sent you a link that we found online about 10 haunted places in Columbus. One that I saw on campus that I thought was interesting was Orton Hall and the Prehistoric Man. William, have you heard this story?
So Orton Hall is one of the older buildings on campus. It's right on the oval, and it is it has a little museum inside. So our state fossil is the trilobite, which is basically a prehistoric giant cockroach. I mean, it's not exactly that, but it might as well be. We didn't have dinosaurs. It was all underwater during that time. But in that, the rumor is that there is a ghost of a caveman or something. And the joke I often tell is, could this be some prehistoric person who's attached to the fossils, or could it just be the ghost of a football player, Unga Bunga,
They get the jocks.
Yes, but people actually. So that building as well. So that's the funny story. But in the upper balcony, Dr. Orton, who the building was named after, he was known to study or write or whatever people do in solitude, and so they claim to this day that you'll see the lights on in the tower when no one's there, and the kind of that Dr. Orton is there working or he's continuing his research or something along those lines. So there is I wouldn't call it a more serious, because there's really no stories of like anything happening other than like, hey, that light's on in this tower where no one should be. But there is in that building, you've got a couple stories to choose from.
Right. A very studious and professorial ghost.
I guess you got time on your hands, so why not?
Right. All right, Lee, which one's scarier, the Lady of the Lake or the prehistoric man?
All right, I don't know if I want to call it scarier, but I love the prehistoric man, and here's why. You don't ever hear stories about ghost cavemen, right?
That's true. Yeah, very rare.
Don't. They're always in the 1800s. What about the 1800s got this connection? Like, was the
what
veil
about 1800
thinner?
BC?
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
Yeah, that's crazy. I know we had a friend who had a lot of trilobite fossils. He had worked over at the Hagerman fossil beds in Idaho. They had found like prehistoric horse there and all kinds of fossils through there. So I've seen, he had boxes of these trilobite fossils that he had discovered on his adventures. So yeah, they're all over the place. But I wonder, a ghost attached to the fossils, that sounds kind of cool. I think the lady is scarier, like seeing her hover above the water would be pretty freaky.
So when I think, like, just mentioning that, there is one issue with that, the ghost being attached to the trilobite fossils. Trilobites were aquatic animals, so how did this ghost get attached to them?
Well, you're thinking about it too hard, Lee. You're thinking about it too hard.
I'm just going for it.
Now, okay, William, you've been on campus. You've seen the sights. Which one would you say is scarier?
I'm going to stick with Lee in terms of, like, I don't know if I'd say scary, but I do enjoy the pink lady or the lady in the pink dress a little bit more. I think it has, more of the tellings of a ghost story. Like, there's really nothing to explain the prehistoric man. Like, yes, maybe it's attached to a fossil, maybe it's whatever. And, there are other fossils other than trilobites in there, so maybe he's a transplant student from somewhere else. But I like the story of the pink lady, because you've got this everlasting, because it's not the ghost of the man who died. It's the wife who was like traumatized, like her story, her seeing her husband's death in that moment. Like that's kind of what captured her spirit in that story. And so I like that there's just more of a story to tell and more of a story to go, okay, I see how this could happen.
Yeah, a little more meat than caveman Unga Bunga. I get you. Well, we all know that the most cursed place on campus, if you're a Michigan fan, is the Horseshoe. So, so there's that. But the university, I'm sure it's amazing. The Oval sounds awesome. But Columbus, also the capital of Ohio. That is like, one of the things that is forced down lots of school children's throats and into their minds, state capitals. So it's something a lot of people know about Columbus. Is there any, ghost stories around like the state house and the government buildings and that sort of thing?
Absolutely. We're talking old buildings. So the state house itself, I think those stories are kind of predictable. It was built with prison labor. The original state house that was burned down, I built a new one. Ended about the time of the Civil War, roughly. So the mid 1800s, 1860s. And there are, of course. Oh, actually, there's I forget what room it is. I used to give tours. My mentor there would be very sad. I don't remember the name of the room, but there was some spots where they found etchings. Some of the prisoners who did construction, they like wrote their names and stuff. And so apparently,
like Dave was here, sort of thing.
Exactly. Apparently, they've had like ghost hunters. That's something I've not gotten into, so I don't completely understand how the instruments and things work. But apparently, that's one of the most, I guess, active part of the State House.
Interesting.
Now, one of my favorite stories connected to the State House, it's not so much scary, it's just fun, is when the State House was built. So, the short version of the story, they built the State House. It ended up not being big enough. Ohio government, even today, moving a little slow, so someone burned it down. This is a pretty popular part of Ohio history and Columbus history. They just burned stuff down if it wasn't moving fast enough. So burned down, they built a new one. And part of the State House, there's tunnels that go under the streets. So the State House takes you to other places. Now, a lot of those are closed, and some of them are predictable. Like there's a parking garage across High Street, so you can walk under the street to get to the parking garage. Like, okay, not that big of a deal. But there's another tunnel that's currently closed that connects to a bar over on Main Street. And this particular bar used to be a brothel. Again, not a surprise in Columbus because there were tons and tons of brothels and speakeasies. This one is still pretty cool looking if you can get to the second floor, which is now used for events, banquets, and things like that. I call it the room of many fireplaces because it has a bunch of fireplaces. Because in that time, they just kind of put up curtains and everybody had their own little like love cove. And yeah. Which is weird because potentially like there's just like a curtain separating you from the guy next to you who's also in his love cove. So it's what that is. But
yeah, well,
I always ask the question of like, I wonder why, I can understand why there was a tunnel to the Ringside Cafe or something across the street where people would go to eat or to have drinks. I can understand the tunnel to the parking garage, but the tunnel to the known brothel, I haven't figured out today why a politician would need easy access to a brothel, but someday historians will tell us.
That's a real mystery. Yeah, those politicians, they never get up to anything shady.
Yeah, you just never know. But with that, I guess it's not really much of a scary story. On the tour, I do a whole point about what's under Columbus, and so tunnels are part of that because it's not, there's no secret city like you might find in Seattle. There's no like tunnels like you find in Savannah, Georgia. Like you can actually go underground and do things. But there are areas of the city that they raised, and so you have some entry points underneath and things like that. So we do talk about tunnels, and I guess, so I apologize to your listeners for like, there's nothing scary about that. Just brothels. Well, depending on who you are. If you're Mike Pence, maybe that sounds very scary to you. But when we talk about the city, I'm going to go off a little bit because this is my favorite story by far that does have to do with Columbus becoming the capital since we hit that. What I like to tell people is Columbus wasn't a city that became the capital. Columbus was designed with greatness in mind. And that's my favorite part about this city. So when Ohio's formed early 1803, Ohio becomes a state. And the capital actually moved around a couple of times. So it's Zanesville, it's here, it's there, it's whatever. And eventually they decide we need something more central. And so they put the word out. We want to have a city, new capital, more in the center of Ohio. And of course, every little town wants to be the capital because it's going to bring in money, it's going to bring in people, it's going to bring in all this stuff. And some guys who own land east of the Scioto River, they told the government, hey, we'll give you the land for free. We'll build you a prison for free, and we'll build you a state house for free. Well, this is a pretty good deal. So the first thing, they build a prison. So now they have prisoners. They use the prisoners to build the state house. They use the prisoners to build the roads, things like that. And if you're in Columbus now, so anyone who's familiar, when Columbus was founded, it was really just a couple blocks downtown. We're talking like Main Street to Broad Street, maybe a little bit north of that, but not much. And just north of Columbus today is the Short North, which is the trendy area. That's where you can find, there's 3 different Jenny's ice cream. There's two up there, stay on the ice cream trend. If you visit Columbus and you like boutique restaurants and shops and stuff like that. It's a great place to go for those things. But just in the south end of the short north is the convention center and the North Market. So these are big landmarks if you're in Columbus. So definitely want to go look at those or go inside the North Market. But when the city was founded, so 1812, Columbus becomes a city or town, whatever the actual like designation was at the time. But just north of that, they decided we're going to put a cemetery here. So you have what we call the Old North Cemetery, and it's there and it grows. It starts, it's about an acre or so when they start. It's about 13 acres before it's all said and done. But as the city grows, it grows in all directions, and especially to the north. Where the convention center is now is where the train station was. And so when people came in on the train, they would get off the train and they'd set up shop right there. So the short north, that area grew pretty quick, but you've got the cemetery right in the middle of it. So mid-1800s, we have a cholera outbreak. People think, oh, it's got to be the cemetery. Like the dead bodies are like polluting the water or something. They didn't know. So they decide to move the bodies. So they go in, they dig up the bodies, they move them to what is today Green Lawn Cemetery, where you still have some of the oldest tombs. Yeah, we're talking like poltergeist stuff here. Not to date myself. I was a kid when those movies came out.
No, I love poltergeist. That's great.
Yeah, so what's cool about this is it's really hard to go in and move all the bodies when, one, record keeping wasn't a priority in 1812 because there was something really big going on in the U.S., the War of 1812. And they actually kept British soldiers in Columbus. It's a whole other story, but there's actually an island that used to exist in the Scioto River. They called it the Bloody Island because they kept the British soldiers there. And if you're on a small island on a relatively narrow river, you're probably going to escape and they get shot and they drown and things like that in the river. And so, there's all kinds of stories about hearing splashing and stuff along the Scioto River. And they think that might be the British soldier ghosts and things like that. I have other explanations for that story if we get into it. But, they try to move these bodies. The other aspect is that people would come and bury their loved ones kind of, sneaking in and doing it without authorization. So there was no record. And so they moved the bodies. And so you can imagine, maybe some things are left behind. And what's really cool, so then the city grows, things happen, North Market's there. It's the oldest and the only surviving public market left in the city. And in 2001 or 2002, they were doing some work on the sewer lines and they found empty graves, like very shallow empty graves. And then they found some not so empty graves. So they proved that bodies were left behind. And they, early 1800 bodies based on the clothing. You could tell that some of the folks were poor, most likely explained by they just snuck in and dug a shallow grave and buried someone. And so you have this area that there's no doubt today still has bodies beneath it. I mean, there's just no way that they got all of them. They proved that when they were doing just in one little section. And they're starting construction soon on a new, I think it's going to be a parking garage with some retail and stuff. And the paranormal fans and the experts and the historians, like, we're really excited to see what kind of stuff they come up with. And then some people are kind of scared of like what kind of hells can be unleashed when you do that. And so I know it's like a really roundabout way to tell this story about when Columbus became a city. And at the same time, they started laying the foundation for this very poltergeist experience where you have a city on top of bodies that were left behind, which is why that area has quite a few stops that people love to visit. Barley's Brew House, Char Bar, places like that are right there where that cemetery used to be.
Yeah, that's definitely a creepy situation. I mean, anytime you're moving bodies, it really does start to I think stir the pot, if you will, and that gets the ghosties going.
Yeah, notice to all future investors, right?
Yeah, and I wish I could tell you that was the only place that happened in Columbus, but the South Cemetery was the same situation. So where Nationwide Children's Hospital sits today, there was a cemetery that actually had Confederate soldiers buried there. So lots of people claim. I mean, let's just go back. Hospitals are already kind of creepy. And this is a children's hospital. So anytime, like, think of any horror movie that you've ever loved that has, like, the bad guy as a kid. So, like, your Damians and your Chuckies. Like, it's way worse when it's a little guy. And so you've got this hospital that's already kind of creepy. And then people, they claim to see Confederate ghosts. You've got the old Catholic cemetery was on the east end of town. Same situation. The Columbus State Community College is on top of that now, and they found body parts and bodies in the park. I mean, not just like laying around the parking lot, but doing construction and unearthing things. They found bodies that had been missed when they tried to move them. And so you have like, that's, I start the tour talking about Columbus, like how did we get here and what's underneath of us? And you have pockets all over the city where this poltergeist kind of activities happen, where they move bodies. They have this restless, disturbed kind of feeling. And, you can imagine if you're, I don't know, you're a spirit and you decide to like go off and do spirit things, you come back and your body's gone. Yeah, you might be a little pissed off by that, So,
yeah, super creepy.
Yeah. So there's lots of, I mean, just to start on the foundation of the city, not to get into specific stories, but you already have like a pretty good base for what could make a city be haunted, like, or have these kinds of tales. You have a pretty good start just by saying, look down, go a couple feet in the ground. You've got some cool stuff beneath you.
Nice. Well, Lee, with that note, I think maybe we should take a quick commercial break and then we'll come right back for more with William Haynes.
Yeah, let's do it.
Are you a fan of movies?
Or comics?
Or video games?
Or just anything else nerdy?
Well, you should check out the Zing This Podcast. And that's spelled
Zeng.
This. And we have nerdy topics from comic book reviews to in-depth analysis of iconic nerdy movies, as well as video game discussions.
Mm-hmm.
Where's some of the best places to find us, Allie?
Well, Podbean, of course.
You can also find us on iTunes, Stitcher, Google Play.
Anywhere else you listen to your podcast. Yeah.
So check us out. Once again, that is Zing This.
And we're back. Lee, we've been talking about Columbus, Ohio with William Haynes and some interesting stuff about the, the bodies buried in the town. Pretty crazy. Lee, did you ever take the Seattle Underground tour?
I never took the Seattle Underground tour, but I got the opportunity to take the Portland Shanghai Tunnels Underground tour. Now, that's pretty creepy. If the listeners don't know about the Shanghai Tunnels, they existed pretty much all up and down the West Coast, but in Portland specifically, they used to essentially get new crew members for ships by shanghaiing them, or in other words, basically get them drunk and kidnap them. Once they are on the ship, they have no place to go, and they just have to work. Or they're thrown overboard, essentially.
I actually had never heard that story. That's crazy.
So they would get them drunk. When they start to pass out, or when they would like either lure them down into a tunnel, or in some cases they actually had trap doors that they would drop these like drunkards down into and take them away and get them out on a ship. And by the time they wake up, they're a couple miles away from land.
Oh, dang. Well, holy cow. Yeah, we took the Seattle Underground one before. That was really cool. It's crazy to think, like, no one thinks about it. Like, at your house, there's stuff buried underground everywhere. And people just don't think about it.
Yeah. I mean, you're looking at me like you expect me to respond, but I don't know what I'm supposed to say, Dan.
Well, I mean, you don't know. The last guy, well, your house is new. So, like, the last guy at my place could have buried a dog in the corner of the yard. I don't know.
I buried a frog in the corner of my yard. The frog died.
It's better than letting it loose in my car, you a-hole. Lee did that to me, William. That was the thing that happened.
Oh, goodness.
It's not my fault. Did you ever find that?
No.
Did it smell up the place for a while?
No, I don't know. It's
oh, man, you got
frog,
a dead
dude.
frog floating around in your car.
It's all dried
somewhere.
up under my seat somewhere, dude. Okay. So, William, we've been talking about Columbus, and you were mentioning the cemeteries. and the bodies that got moved over to what was it, Green Lawn Cemetery? Is that correct?
Green Lawn. Yep.
Now, I read in our top 10 most haunted places of Columbus, Green Lawn was listed in there, that the mausoleums, you could go up and knock on the door and someone would knock back. Ooh.
Yeah, that's certainly one of them. I've never had much luck with that myself, which is funny because on tour, people, I mean, it's without a doubt, someone asks me, have you experienced anything yourself? Like, what have you experienced? Because I tell all these stories, and I tell them, like, I, with some hesitation, I'm not too scared to go try. Like, if they say this is, I did a tour of the Mansfield Reformatory where the Shawshank Redemption was filmed, an old prison about an hour north of Columbus. And they say, this is the most, like, heinous part. It's the solitary confinement. I'm like, yeah, lock me in. Shut the door. Like, let's see what happens. Like, I'm all for it. Let's do it. And so if they say knock on something and something, I go. When I was a kid, there was rumors that there was, Mary Jane or Bloody Mary, like her grave was over here in Lucas, and if you go jump and spit on it, let's go, guys. Let's, I want it to happen. And I always make the joke with the guests. I'm like, I think the ghosts know that I'm profiting from their stories, and so they're just going to leave me alone. Like, they're just, hey, we're not getting a cut. We're not going to be a part of it.
Right. Yeah. Like, we're not going to show up if we're not going to get any part of the take.
Exactly. So that's why Green Lawn, unfortunately, I mean, most of these places I've not had any experience of my own, but yeah, the mausoleum is a pretty popular spot for people to go to do that, to knock. And, it's a huge cemetery with some of the oldest tombs in the city. I mean, you can see, goodness, I think even like George W. Bush's grandfather is buried there because he was a Columbus man. I'm top of my head right now, I'm not coming up with other ones. Rickenbacker, the Air Force pilot, like he's up there. Anyway,
oh yeah.
Yeah. So there's, we got, a few famous people, but yeah. And, in terms of cemeteries, it's not, Green Lawn's great for history. To be honest, like I love that as a historic walk. There's some really cool tombs and stories to tell, but in terms of the haunted history, it's a cemetery. Typically they're creepy. They have their own thing. It's not my favorite of the cemeteries, I guess I should say. Right.
Well, it's not as cool as serving beer on campus. That's for sure. So Lee, you were a rambunctious youth.
Rambunctious.
Rambunctious. You were.
I don't know what you're talking about. What did I do?
Did you ever get up to any cemetery shenanigans?
Oh, not as much as I would have liked to. There wasn't a seminary. There wasn't a cemetery nearby that I could sneak into. So no, we typically just walked around town at night and harassed people. Our friends, but still.
Ding dong ditch.
Oh yeah, knock on their windows.
Wow, you're such an what a rambunctious youth you were.
I know, right? I know.
Out of control. I'm surprised you didn't get sent to military school. Stuff like that.
I don't know how I did. How I avoided it.
So speaking of military school, Lee, in our top 10 most haunted places of Columbus, one of the ones that kept coming up was Fort Hays.
Fort Hays. I saw that one.
Is there anything in that story that piqued your interest?
Ooh. No.
I put you on the spot, didn't I?
You did. You did.
Well, I guess we're going to have to go to our expert then. William, what's going on? How come these Fort Hays stories keep coming up in our haunted Columbus searches?
Yeah, so Columbus has a pretty interesting history when it comes to military stuff. And so you've got old ammunition depots and warehouses and things like that. And so Fort Hays kind of falls under that category. And I mean, again, not to downplay some of the, I don't know what list you looked at. I'm already disagreeing with top 10 that one doesn't make my top 10, but it's also, to be honest, it's also outside of the walkable area that I typically go. So I tend to favor the ones that I can walk to.
There you go.
That's a fair thing to do it. But, Fort Hays goes back to Civil War, which I love. I do a Civil War tour. And it's funny because, fighting didn't happen in Columbus. We didn't have Civil War battles up that way. But yet we have a pretty relevant history when it comes to Civil War. Everything from Camp Chase, where they had the POWs, which is one of my favorite haunted cemeteries in Columbus. You have the Ohio Art Center, which was the armory, during that time. So you have all this kind of stuff. So Fort Hays goes back to that. And they did some training at Fort Hays. They did some staging over at Goodell Park. It's another one that people know. And they talk about, a lot of the stories are, people during training, especially Civil War training, they might die during training, they might die during exercises and things like that. And so you have these stories where, one who was a veteran military man, saw this figure at night who, kind of said, "Hey, follow me," gave him the finger, not the middle finger, but like the finger, like, "Hey, silently come with me," and goes and shows him this area in the attic where people had written their names, back. Oh, sorry. The story of the figure, this is way after the Civil War. So this isn't after the fact. And now this, the place is used as like a school and things like that. And they go back and they look, he said, the story is that they saw people's names written on this support beam in the attic. And then, later they went back upstairs and it was all gone. Like all the names weren't there, but, it comes back and things like that. People also talk about, I know that's not a very exciting story. Fort Hays is also like loosely associated with when Abraham Lincoln, after he was assassinated, they did like a big train to show off his body in different places from DC.
Yeah, the funeral train. Yeah.
Yeah. And so they went right through Columbus and they fired, like they did like a salute with cannons and stuff at Fort Hays. And so people kind of connect that to the Abraham Lincoln ghost that people claim to see at the State House and at the Char Bar and at the different places. My favorite on that, of course, is on High Street. People will claim like late at night, you've been out drinking and you come out and you hear this train and they say it's the actual, like the ghost of the train that brought Lincoln across. So I'm like, ghost train, okay, if ghosts are spirits and stuff, this one doesn't make as much. There's also, just to be honest, there's train tracks that go under the bridge of High Street. So I usually tell people, like, at this point, you're probably so drunk that you hear a train and don't see it because it's beneath you. But so those are all connected. Like, again, Fort Hays, not necessarily my top 10. It's a really cool historic building and area. I think the stories there don't have a lot of substance. The ones that I know, they're presumably someone knows more.
I think Lee and I, like, we're in the South, so if it has to do with the Civil War, like, there's a ghost story.
Oh,
right?
yeah. Oh, yeah. So
like, it's just all the time.
I have one thing to, like, ask an expert at least. Why does it seem that there are so many stories of Lincoln's ghost? I feel like there are just way too many of them. Either somebody's lying or there's something else going on.
Well, I think that depends on kind of what you accept creates the ghost stories. So,
are you thinking like stone tape theory kind of thing?
Well, since I don't know what that is, I don't know. But
supposedly, large certain minerals in the soil and in the rocks beneath areas can hold energy and hold moments of high tension and replay those over and over again. They say things like limestone and granite and like 7 other different things. We have a scientist friend that points out that that's pretty much the Earth's crust. So there's that.
Like every rock listed could be, Lee, I don't think so. I think he's just Lincoln's just such an enigmatic figure and was so well known. And the funeral train did run across, and he's got Kentucky, he's got Illinois, he's got Washington, he's got Virginia. I mean, like I said, that train went all over, and I think more people went to see Lincoln's body when he died than probably anybody else in the history of time. So, like, just his funeral arrangements were so huge that it built this great story.
Yeah, it's so you gave me a name for something I do talk about on tour, the limestone that is beneath Columbus and the supposed way that it holds energy and things like that. So you call it the stone tape theory. Thank you for that.
You're very welcome.
Added to the PowerPoint. I didn't know there's a name for it. But yeah, just, to add on to your point, like Lincoln's body, they put it in the State House, and there are some pictures online. I have one that shows the tomb there in the black and white checkered room underneath the rotunda. And the story, I mean, there was 50,000 people that came to see him, and the city at the time had a population of less than half that. And they came in one side, went out the other. I mean, it plays right along. Like, everybody, they love that guy. And again, if you go into why there's so many ghost stories associated with him, I mean, he's a popular figure, so it's an easy one. He's recognizable, so maybe if you're going to see a ghost, like if you know who it is, that helps add to the story. But I do kind of think if there are going to be these things happening, ghosts that haunt these different areas or things like that, like there very well could be associated with very high energy or high emotion. And so, there is a story in the State House of Lincoln. He visited the State House only 3 times in Ohio, and the third one was when he was dead. The first time was before he was president. But that second time, the rumor is that he was visiting when the Electoral College confirmed him as president. And they say he was in the governor's office, sitting in the governor's chair. I don't know if I believe that, but it sounds nice. Like, he just happened to be like in the power position when that happened. But the story is that there was a celebration, as you would have, and that he danced with the daughter of Samuel Chase, who ended up being a treasurer under him. And there's, the side stories like Mrs. Lincoln was like, nope, she's a young woman, get away from her. But the story goes, that they had this really lovely time. And years later, people, have claimed to see, the man who looks like Lincoln dancing with this young woman. And, they go back later and there's nothing there. Security guards have said that they've seen this, or that, they've called in like, hey, do we have any actors here? And they say, no one's supposed to be there. And then, there's poof, it's gone. The music is gone. And it really points back to that was just a very like joyous occasion. Like there was no scandal or anything like that. He's just, hey, I just was confirmed president. We have this celebration. I'm happy. Like things are going well. And that just replays, like that idea that emotional moment just kind of sticks in time. Which it actually plays in, another State House story. I forget the name of the State House employee. I can find it. I don't usually tell the story on the tour, but there was a senator, a state senator, something like that, who was known to be very staunch and very, like, his time was exact. And so people do claim about 5 o'clock on the east side of the State House, like, the lights flicker, you feel that cold spot. And they say like every day it's like, that's what time he got off work and he left. It's like Stanley Hudson on The Office. Like, it's 5 o'clock, I'm out. And so that path is just followed again and again and again. So, I mean, if you buy into the stone tape theory of these ghost stories, like it kind of makes sense in places like that, or in these stories where it's just this repetitive, like, hey, they see this thing happening again and again and again.
Dude, yeah, that's awesome. Yes, Salmon P. Chase, very famously part of Lincoln's cabinet, his team of rivals. And what a great name. Like, no one's named Salmon anymore. Lee, what you got?
Okay. I'm just going to say it. During these moments where people think they see Lincoln, do we know exactly where Daniel Day-Lewis is?
Oh, right. That guy's so good.
I swear one day I'm going to like look in the mirror and be like, holy crap, I'm Daniel Day-Lewis. And I just stole that from Age 51. Sorry, guys.
What an amazing actor. You'll be walking up on stage receiving your Oscar, and that's when it breaks. That's when the character breaks.
I'm sorry, Brent, or whoever, or whichever one from Hysteria 51. I apologize. Please don't sue us.
Well, Well, William, we're going to shout out some other more popular podcasts later on. But we should shout out Brohio too, since we're shout out to those dudes. All right. So what, William, for you is your favorite place in a haunted tour or any tour that we haven't covered yet?
Oh man. I think, on tour or off tour, a really great spot is the Char Bar. And it's pretty well known. If that wasn't on your top 10 list, then I'm going to tell you to just delete that website, because it is the hot spot for stories. Now, a lot of times you can't see me, but I'm making a motion of the Long Island iced teas, like how big they make them. I mean, they're huge. And if you have 2 of those, you will see ghosts. But that facility, that place is really cool because it's a dive bar, but it's right on the edge of the Short North. So it's it kind of doesn't fit, but it does. There's a lot of really trendy and nice bars and dance clubs and things right in that area. And you've got this dive bar, but the building is really cool, very historic. When you walk in the front door, you're actually walking into the original 2nd floor of the building, because they raised High Street to make a connection from the Short North to downtown. So they raised it. And so the original 1st floor door, there's nothing there now. You can't really get to it, but you can, when you go downstairs, you can see it. You can see a window and the door that would have led to the basement. Again, all those things are locked, and really there's nothing to see, nothing to do. But the bathroom is downstairs, and in the tour, I end the tour there. Every haunted tour that I do, whether it's a Booze and Brews where we stop at bars, or it's just a walking tour where we just go stop at these places, I end there because it's the creepiest. It's got that musty smell. If you live somewhere they have basements and you have a grandparent, you know what I'm talking about. It's that old,
it's that smell. Oh,
stone walls, and the bathroom's down there, and everyone talks about how creepy it is. And there's this old piano, 1800s, solid steel, just ridiculous old piano. Rumors are that the Char Bar was a speakeasy at one point. And the stories people often tell revolve around that piano. Late at night, they hear the piano playing, or the piano moved when they were in the bathroom. And you got to see this thing to believe it. So one, it doesn't have any keys, so you can't play it. The only way you can make noise with it, you can actually reach inside of it and hit the strings. But to play with any organization, I don't know how because the strings, if you've seen the inside of an old stand-up piano like that, they're so close together. You can't just tap one with your finger. You'd have to really have some precision tools to play anything and know what strings or what keys. And the thing is heavy. The one rumor is that someone went to the bathroom, they heard a loud thud, they came out, and they'd been moved several feet from the wall. And it took 4 people to put it back. So you have a lot of stories that go down there. It's just a really cool historic building. What I like most about that is, when I'm on tour, 2 cool things happen. So one, people tell me their stories. And just like you, I love those local stories that people tell. Some of them are dumb. You tell about what happened to my grandma's dog? Oh, okay. Please. Whereas others might, add to, actually my dad worked at this facility. He said this, this, and this. And you go, that's really cool. I didn't know that. And every time someone does that, I get to add to the tour. But I also have where people maybe experience something on the tour in the places that we go. And that's what I love about that Brews and Brews is I pick historic bars or locations that have some relation to the stories that we're telling. So the Char Bar is by far the place where I've had the most people tell me that they've felt something, experienced something, where I've kind of seen something happen that was even for me was like, oh, that's weird. And like I said, I don't get treated to any paranormal stuff. It's to the point where I'm like, well, maybe it's just maybe it's not real, because it never happens for me. It's only for other people. But I'm okay with the intrigue of it. And I'll tell you real quick a couple of Char Bar stories that have happened on tour with a group of people. Now, it's not like we saw ghosts or anything. There is the rumor that there's a specter that haunts the downstairs area, a very angry, possibly trapped. Now, the Char Bar, if you go out the back door, that is the Old North Cemetery. So this could very well be related to the cemetery and the bodies that were moved. There's also rumors that the char bar was used to house bodies. There is a rumor that it was a crematorium, although it's not confirmed, and I don't know if that's true. But there's talk that it used to be, like, the building used to be used for stuff like that. So we don't, I don't know where this particular, like, specter or those stories come from. But there was the first year that I did the tour, and when I started, I did just a walking tour. We walked about 3 miles. It was a 3-hour tour, not unlike Gilligan's Island, but we all came back. Dating myself again. Your listeners, your younger listeners, like, I don't know what this guy's talking about.
A 3-hour tour.
And it was the second year that I started saying, hey, what if we added, like, bar stops? And I just told stories that were connected instead of going to every single location. And so the first year, when I did this, I had, I did like 7 nights over the month of October, and I had maybe 35 people go total. So it wasn't a big hit the first year. I had 300 people go the second year. So the lesson is add beer. It makes a huge difference.
Yes, for sure.
But, there was a night when it was raining, and so everybody canceled or they moved to a different date. But I got a call. There was a woman. She worked at Ohio State, and she had a friend coming from Indiana, and she said, hey, I know it's raining, but any chance you're going to still do it? And I said, yeah, of course, rain or shine. Like, I'm going to go. Like, I don't care. Let's do it. And so her friend from Indiana, who, to my knowledge, has no experience in Columbus, doesn't know anything about this city, and she gets there, and she tells me at the beginning of the tour, she goes, hey, just so you know, I'm sensitive. And I'd never heard anyone say that before, other than, like, don't make fun of me, or, don't make short jokes or something like that. So I was like, oh, okay, yeah, And she goes, no, that means, like, I can sometimes feel things. If there are spirits and stuff like that, I can feel it. And I, my first thought was like, I don't know. That's a kind of a weird thing just to come out and tell me. I was like, but there's only 3 of us, and the other person's your friend, so maybe, So I said, hey, if you experience anything, please let me know. I would love to hear the story. And she's like, okay, cool. Like, most people don't believe me. I was like, I may not. I don't know. I don't know what that means. Like, so let's do it. And we did the whole tour. We walked 3 hours. She didn't say more than a word anywhere. And we get to the char bar. We go downstairs, and instantly she starts pacing back and forth. Like, she's agitated. And I thought maybe she was texting, or like boyfriend broke up with her or something. Like, I don't know. Like, something happened on the walk from the previous location to that one. We had about like a 10-minute walk, and she's just walking back and forth, and you can tell she's upset, and she's like, this isn't right. This isn't good. This isn't, like, something's not right. Something's not right. And there's only 3 of us on the tour, so I'm kind of letting this happen. Normally I would try to just, like, okay, let's everyone come in and let's tell some stories. This is the last stop. I want to go home. And I eventually, I'm like, hey, come over, stand by us. Like, let me tell you about this place, what I know about this place. And, tell me if that matches what you're feeling. And as I start talking about the specter and the kind of the stories that people tell about that place, I can just see her, like, her eyes are widening, and she's kind of looking and shaking her head, and she's still, like, very agitated. And eventually she just stops me. She goes, that's what it is. Something is trapped here. Something doesn't want, and she's talking fast. Like, this, it creeps me out, because the whole time she was very quiet, very meek, quiet girl. And all of a sudden, like, you thought she did like a shot of cocaine or something. Like, she just was like rapid fire, go, 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 go.
Whoa.
And the minute we walked out of that basement, back to quiet, back to reserved, like, whatever. And as this maybe had been like the 3rd day I had done this tour, and seeing that, I was like, oh my gosh, like, what just happened? So either she's pulling my leg, because it does happen. People who know the stories or know about a particular place that we're going. Char Bar is very popular for their ghost stories. So we go there, and people, ooh, I hear the piano, or ooh, this and that happened. So they like to, I don't know, beat the punchline before I get there, or add to their stories or something like that. And this particular girl, I don't know if that was the case. Like, she did a very good job selling it, but it was enough to make me uncomfortable. And that was the biggest. But I'd say every year, that spot, something like that happens. I had a girl, like, just like fall to her bottom, sit down. And I was like, are you okay? And she's like, there's just a really heavy presence here, and I can't stand up. I was like, cool, well, I'm going to go. So I'll see you guys later.
Whoa.
Things like that happen. And the other creepy one is we're coming downstairs, and typically I do a little introduction before we go into the building. I say, the history of the building and stuff like that. But it was raining, and so we just came right inside. So I hadn't said anything about the Char Bar. And there was a younger guy, in young 20s. Most of my tour guests are in their 30s, some 40s and things like that. But we get some younger folks as well in their 20s and things. And so this guy, he kind of did like a double take when we walked in, as if he like saw something. And I said, are you okay? And he kind of leaned in and he said, people in my family, we can see things. And again, I have that whole like, I don't know, man. I don't know. Is that a thing? Like, people say it's a thing, like, but I don't know. I was like, okay, cool. And so I said, did you see something? He's like, I did, but I don't know. I'm not going to say anything. I was like, that's cool, man. That's cool. So we do the whole tour. And at the end, when people come up, and I'm hoping they give me tips, lesson out there, if you come on the tour, tips are awesome. People come and shake your hand and stuff. And he came up and he said, yeah, so you were talking about the rumors that this place was a crematorium. He's like, I saw a chalky white figure in the corner. He goes, and I think that was like a burned, ashy body, like just kind of standing there watching us. And this was maybe year 3. And at that time, I still thought that the crematorium idea was possible. I think since then I'm starting to lean away from it because I can't prove it. I can't find anything to support that other than rumor. And so at that time I was like, man, like this kid saw something even before I told him what it was. And now I start to wonder, like, did he see something? Was it something else? What was it? But definitely enough to kind of creep you out a little bit. So I talked a long time for that. So listeners, hit 2 times as fast. Go back, listen again. I don't know. But
no, those are creepy, man, because you're in a basement with someone who tells you they can see something or feel something. Like, that's freaky.
Now, one thing that I thought about, you mentioned that piano and it potentially being like it's in a basement, but it used to be the main floor of the building. So there's got to be some interesting ways they raised that street. Not saying that any municipality would ever do shoddy workmanship on their building materials, but moving past that. My experiment that I would love to do is just go in and test for infrasound. Like, I kind of wonder if
I get you.
Cars traveling on the road is doing something to vibrate those keys that's outside of our spectrum of able to hear.
Just that weird low sound.
Just that weird infrasound that you don't hear, but it's proven to cause like the feeling of eeriness, hallucinations in some people, and some people are much more susceptible than others. But just about everybody is susceptible to a certain extent on it.
Wow, Lee, I'm surprised you've come in with like a real paranormal investigator thing. Like, that's legit. That's good.
I'm proud of myself.
Yeah, I'm impressed. William, what do you think about Lee's sound theory?
It'd be interesting to see. I'm thinking of the structure because, the road would go, it's the opposite wall, and it's a wall in the middle of the building. So I could definitely see that.
We're gonna have to get some real paranormal investigators out there. Like, guys, we know some real paranormal investigators.
Mm-hmm. We do.
We'll see. We'll see. We might get get a crew together. Have to come out there and do a real thing post Rona, because that would be fun. That'd be fun as heck. So, William, I think like those like creepy basement stories are the best ones, the ones to end on. But before we go, tell our listeners how they can get a hold of you.
Yeah, so the easiest thing to do is just to jump on showmecolumbus.com. My email is very easy, will@showmecolumbus.com. I at one time started some social media things, but I don't use them. So if you send a message on Facebook, I'll get it. I probably won't get it for some time. So email is the easiest way. And I tell people, if you're in the Columbus area or coming to the Columbus area, even though I'm not running the tours this year, I'm definitely coming back as soon as it is safe to do so. And the Haunted Tour, every once in a while I'll put it on the calendar, even in the spring. Obviously Halloween, October, and the fall is one of the best times to do a tour like that. But I also do like famous crimes. So if you like that kind of stuff, or if you just like general history. But if you are, coming to town or in town right now and you're like, hey, I would really love to do something like this. There are some other tours that are running. that you can definitely check out. ColumbusGhostTours.com. A guy named Bucky does an excellent tour. And I'll say, like, we are a little bit different. I think his goal is, I think he's more of the paranormal guy. So maybe he'd be a good person, better person on the show than I am. But I'm more of the history guy. I really like the history. And, you know, my tour was, it came from learning history about these different places and going, I bet they have a pretty good ghost story with this place. You know, the history books wouldn't tell you that about the Old Norse Cemetery. So when I read that they move bodies and this kind of thing, I said, that has to have some good stories. And then I know what to look for and start interviewing and start talking to people and finding those things out. Or just send me an email, and I'm happy to share resources with people. I said my tour business, it is a side gig. I mean, it's done very well for me. It's a lot of fun. I mean, it scratches my theater itch. Like I said, I graduated, or you pointed out my bio, graduated with a degree in theater, so this is a great way to kind of do that. But anyways, shoot me an email and say, hey, I'm coming to Columbus, or I'm looking for a cool place to go, or what's a route that would take me to some of these places, and I'm happy to share that with you. And like I said, I've done virtual tours. I've done pretty much anything you can think of. So if nothing else, if you like history and you like these kind of things, I'm happy to point you in the right direction so you can learn some of it on your own.
Dude, that's awesome. I love it. I love William's a hustler. He's a good guy. Beyonders, if you're heading to Columbus, hit him up. Go see something cool, learn some history you didn't know about, find a spooky spot or a local legend that you didn't hear about, and who knows, maybe sit down and have a good drink. So sounds pretty fun to me.
The key is add beer. That's what William has taught me today. That's the number one lesson from today.
That is, any of my side hustles where that is a possibility has been the make or break. So the knife sharpening with beer was a no-go, but
fair. That's really a wine awesome. Thing, right? Like, you just do that with wine.
Very artistic. Well, William, it has been awesome having you on, and we look forward to hearing from you again.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me. I had a lot of fun, and I look forward to hearing some more of your episodes come out. And yeah, thanks.
Thank you for listening to Beyond Terrestrial, all three of y'all. If you're still a fan of this show, follow Beyond Terrestrial on social media and join the Beyonders Facebook group for even more strangeness. Links to everything, including previous episodes, are available at beyondterrestrial.com. That's the place to go for stickers, merch, show swag, and our Patreon. Patrons get exclusive access to ad-free shows, giveaways, and the unedited after-show show. Anything you give to the show goes straight to Funkmaster B's bachelor pad, which for now is also where these jive turkeys record this show. This show was edited by Simple Equations Media with music by Mike Root. Dan and Lee will be back next Tuesday with more from Beyond Terrestrial.